let's make a start. Hello, everyone. My name's Tim Frenell. I'm the founder and curator of Adventurous Inc. Thank you so much for joining us for this month's conversation. Yes, there's a pace in my voice. This evening, we're up against a hard stop at 9 o'clock because Sylvia has very kindly slotted in a time to chat to us all. She's got to get a plane to San Francisco. Such is the jet set lifestyle of our authors. So thank you, Sylvia. So I'm sure most of you have caught up with Sylvia. You'd have at least read the blurb on the book if you've not got all the way through. Spoiler alert, she makes it to the top. I'm sorry, guys. Just let's get that one out there for now. So she was born and raised in Lima, Peru. And as a child, she endured a period of sexual violence that would haunt much of her adult life. So, wow, big stuff right from the off. We're going in. Nearly 30 years later, she had a vision of reconnecting with her inner child, two of them walking in a valley surrounded by mountains. Sylvia said, the shadow of the mountains, the only thing big enough to swallow my shadow. Some beautiful stuff going to come out this evening. I'm looking forward to it. After losing her mother to cancer and undergoing a divorce, Sylvia submitted, can't say it. Sylvia, how do you pronounce it? Aconcagua?
Aconcagua, that's right, the tallest mountain in South America.
And realized she needed to help others, and founded Courageous Girls, a non-profit dedicated to helping victims of sexual violence find their own sense of peace and closure through trekking. I mean, wow, what a life story. So I think when summiting Everest is not the biggest life story that you've got to tell, then that's some kind of life. And that is genuinely why it's taken us 6 years before we've had a book where we've been on the summit of Everest. Despite spending 6 years of reading adventure stories, it's only now that we've finally climbed to the top of the world. And that's not without good reason, because much, I mean, like that much of Sylvia's book is about not climbing Everest. It's what she does on the way up to Everest and in the rest of her life. It's a fabulous book. So after I picked it, it was awarded the Stanford's Travel Book of the Year for this year, which is amazing. I know the response has been amazing out there. Some folk have said it's the best book they've ever had for Adventure Inc., their best book that they've ever read. I know that it's scheduled to be made into a film, and Selena Gomez is going to play you in it, Sylvia. And most exciting, we were talking before, it's about to be published in Spanish, isn't it? Which must be really special. That must be quite a moment for you.
It is, that's my birth language. It's the language of love that I've learned. And the journey itself, it's funny, we knew we sold it last year. And I think around December, I was in Peru. I met with the publisher and they kind of gave me a couple of chapters. And I was like, yeah. It's like, yeah, we might need your help. And I maybe glanced the first page. I was like, there's something that looks off here. Well, what was really unique, around mid-February, they started sending me the chapters and they were like, we need your help. So most of the translations in Spanish are done by, the largest distributors in Spain or in Mexico. And Planeta is the largest Spanish distributor in the world. And this was Planeta Peru that had bought it. And the challenge is that they hadn't translated a book directly from English to Spanish in a long time, and they needed massive help. And as I started reading, it was a little bit of Google Translate, and it was this massive Pandora box, because even when writing the book in English, a lot of the childhood emotions, I brought them out in Spanish. I actually had, twice a week therapy sessions. And more for almost 2 years, they were dedicated to the book. But it was always like, we'll get into the hard part in Spanish and then always go back to English and process and keep pushing myself. This time I had to stay through the whole thing in Spanish, opening this crazy Pandora box. On top of this, when I've climbed, I learned it in English. And so I had to learn how to translate all of it in Spanish. And it was just quite a journey. Actually, I just flew back from Peru. I was there for 2 weeks recording the audiobook. And might be one of the very few authors in the world that might have recorded her audiobook in both languages. And I was talking to my publisher today, and they were like, "Oh, that's interesting." I mean, and they want me to write an article about it. And I'm like, I mean, I feel like I'm my own guinea pig as I'm going through this journey. And I have to tell you, I mean, the final version of the book is so beautiful, is so powerful. The Spanish that it was a contribution of me being able to connect, revive a lot of that knowledge, but also having a lot of help with the line edit. It's just such a powerful book, and we're launching it in Spanish in Peru and here in the US in Spanish in a couple of months. But what really hit me is a lot of the immigrants here who ended up having children. Whenever I've given talk to a lot of the Latino community, they have always been bummed because they want to read the book in Spanish with their parents. And so now we're putting ourselves into that part. So it's this beautiful gift that keeps on giving. And I'm really, I know I'm going to, tickle the belly of the beast because unfortunately the patriarchy, a lot of, abuse on women is still pretty high down there. So, but, I got the mother of the world behind me, and I'm just thrilled.
Oh, so it's wonderful. And I mean, it is going to take a while, isn't it? Because I think what you start to challenge are those old power structures. And it's about patriarchy and expectations and guilt and secrets and the flip side of that, the passion and the joy and the awe and the wonder. And like I get, as someone who is driven by creating social change, and we'll talk about a little bit about how you got to that. It must feel super powerful to have done that, I guess, once with the book in one language, and now to feel like you're almost taking it home in your own language. That must be amazing.
Yes, it's very special. And I mean, the downside, my accent is just getting thicker, but it's but no, I mean, the purpose of for me sharing the book, and I came, and I've done a lot of stuff. You sometimes share this on interviews, but on my anniversary of Everest, I was involved in a horrible bike accident. I wasn't wearing a helmet. Life was quite chaotic, and I ended up, a truck almost cut me over. And so as I tried to avoid it, I fell in a ditch. I hit my head so hard without a helmet, I ended up on the ICU. And I was about 10 days shy of climbing Denali, trying to push for my third attempt. And I was being a pain in the hospital. I'm like, I gotta go, I gotta climb. I was still drinking then. And the doctor at one point was annoyed, and he said, like, hey, we found a small brain tumor in your brain stem. You're not going anywhere. And so to me, and that evening, as they confirmed it, they couldn't tell if it was benign or cancerous. And because of the trauma, the way that I had hit my head had been pretty hard, I had to wait for a little bit of the swelling to go down before doing MRIs. And so I was a moment when I told myself, well, if it's cancerous, my mom died of cancer, I've had cancer in the family. This is, I remember, I will never forget having gratitude. I will never forget just having this moment to myself. I kicked everybody out, and I remember just feeling in my heart and just telling myself, I've had quite a life. I have loved, I have lost, I have laughed, I have cried, I've seen some of the most gorgeous sunsets, some of the most beautiful sunrises. And if it's my time, I will quit my job, because at the time I was no longer happy with it. And I will find a way of sharing my story, because hopefully it can help somebody. And luckily it's been a benign tumor, yet that was the impetus for me to eventually put that goal, that dream of sharing the story. And of course, I still needed to finish the mountain and come clean with my drinking. But the dream was always, okay, well, if I want to share, let me write the book that I wish I would have read. Let me write the book that I wish I would have, especially during the time of struggle. I want to be able to read a book in which the author doesn't hold back and can really get into the depth of the darkness and not to pretty it up. And I think that was my dream. And I know it's not an easy read. I almost feel every time I tell people, and especially I'm finding it in airports quite a bit, and I'm signing it usually when I'm at the airports. And when I tell the readers, I'm like, well, like disclaimer alert. But it is, I mean, even as I was rereading it in Spanish, you close the book and it leaves you with such a beautiful message. And I know we all have a mountain. We all have our Everest. We all have our inner mountain. And so it's an invitation, and yeah, it's very, very special.
I mean, I think that vulnerability that you're willing to show there is really the thread that runs all the way through. And I think we're going to tease it out time and time and time again. But I guess I'm interested in where, because obviously so you start with there's lots of secrets, aren't there? And there's lots of things that get squashed down, and whether that's the abuse that happened to you, whether it's your drinking, which is obviously a response to that, whether it's your sexuality and coming out as a lesbian and not feeling welcomed, and all the duality that of existence that goes with that. So that's a lot, and a lot of people deal with that sort of pain, but very few people choose to channel that pain in a way that you have. So what was it? Why did you choose to turn that pain into something positive?
I felt, I mean, it is, I have to, and being upfront and honest, I mean, when I had my accident the year after Everest, I was still drinking. And I was still drinking till 2018. And there was something about, being a hypocrite. And I remember with my beloved former British wife, and that's, and this is what's so special. I mean, we used to go to the UK quite a bit. And so I'm a fake Brit. And I love the language. I love intonation. It is something that, yeah, I don't know. I just have a big heart, and I get very goofy. I think the first time we were doing the book launch last year, I'm like, I'm Sylvia from Darkest Peru. So it's like, it's my silly inside joke, but
you've seen Paddington, right?
Of course I've seen Paddington. Yeah, I mean, and so this is a way of hey, I actually was named, I gave the commencement at my university in Peru, in Millersville in Lancaster last year, and I became Dr. Sylvia. So it was just really funny to also take the piss and be like, hi, I'm Dr. Sylvia, we're from Peru. But I feel, so I remember even my ex-wife did a lot of work with, new age experts, and a lot of people with self-help. And I would always see the dark side of it. It's like, it's easy to preach, but then when the cameras or where the audience or nobody was looking, they would be acting differently in the back. And for me, I felt there's no way I can talk or share a book about my own issues with addiction if I have an addiction. And I knew deep down that I was struggling. I knew deep down, like through 2018, I knew deep down that I thought I had my drinking under control, and I wasn't. And so I needed to come clean through that, and figured out, can I live the rest of my life without drinking? And if that's the case, then I should consider and really move forward to figure out how to share my story. But that was something because I really wanted to, I mean, my addiction to drinking started really early. And sadly it had been the longest relationship I had with anything. And even, I'm 5 years in August, and I'm, I'm excited. Yet, you still hear people 10 years, they fall off a wagon, but it's a day by day. And so to me, kind of having the clarity and the passion and the commitment to be able to bring a story that was honest, I for me just felt important that I needed to walk my talk, and to embody my words. And so that became very important for me. And it's been lucky. I mean, I keep joking that, well, if anybody brings a vodka from Mars, okay, we might have to talk about it. But, I've been very lucky that I'm not lucky and unlucky to have, experienced so many things around, but yeah.
And just to remind everyone again, do ask your own questions. Sylvia's on a hard finish at 9. So this isn't going to run over. And so get your questions in the chat. I can see there's one there from Peter. So I guess it seems like your journey of healing has been a big part of helping others with their own journey of healing. And I realized, to me, it read almost as if you almost became a Sherpa on the trek to base camp, carrying the burden of all these other women. I know you reflect upon that, but where did you turn it outwards? Where did you, I mean, so you talk in the book about realizing that you needed to do it with other people. What was the emotive driver there? Why did you need to take other people? Because it's wonderful, it's powerful, but it's so rare.
And that's a really good question. I mean, I had that promise at the base of Everest was 2005. And I had struggled for a long time to find what made sense. I remember while climbing, I would always see at the summit people, or, as you get into know teammates, it's like, oh, I'm doing this in behalf of the Red Cross. I'm doing this in behalf of this and that. And it felt like, great, I can do this on behalf of something, but it never really, the shoe almost never really fit right. And I even, we didn't put this on the book, but with my ex-wife, we started a small foundation. We went to the DR Congo, the Democratic Republic in the Congo, in the middle of the Civil War in 2009, when things were quite unstable. And we started working with a group of former child soldiers and young girls who had been prostituted. And I remember being like, whoa, I mean, I know we started a small foundation, but because my mother got sick, I couldn't do a lot of work. I mean, so I kind of stepped on the side. But even there, there was something that, it was almost like something wasn't clicking right. And I kept looking and I kept asking. And then I stopped climbing, for a while. And so when I got back and picked it up in 2013, especially after my mother died and after I got divorced, I did the Hoffman. And the catch was, ooh, we're going to explore the inner mountains. I'm like, wait, there's a mountain I want to do on the outside. And so I think what was very unique is that, and I've told this to people, that, many people have asked me about purpose and wanted to find their own purpose, wanted to find how to be of service of others. And what it is unique, like even when I made that promise at the base of Everest, is like, well, I want to come back and climb as a mountaineer and, to go to the top, but have to become a mountaineer. So I kind of have to learn for myself so I don't put others in danger. And two, I want to, come back with purpose. And I think at times, in order to find purpose, we need to kind of work on the healing of ourselves first. And I think taking myself to Aconcagua was literally that. This was a dream. This is part of your dream. This is part of you follow this big vision. Great. And the way the mountain rewarded me is by literally bringing the purpose very clear. The night before the summit was almost that opportunity, that reckoning of my own existence, that horrible cry. And I always take the piss that, my tent mate, who's actually right now climbing Everest, he was snoring so hard that, there was no, sometimes, many of us want to be able to get vulnerable, and then we're like a little shy, and it's like, oh, people are around. And so I remember getting the green light that he was like snoring so hard. I'm like, great, I can cry. And literally, I think I had to release a lot of pain, because I think, we all have inside of ourselves so much strength to achieve anything we want. But at times, doubt, pain, so many things can get on the way. And the way to really surrender and release can clean all of that up. And that's why I still want to imagine that, as I was literally crying for everything, I mean, I was having my moment of grief. And I call me crazy, but I want to imagine the sky opened up to me and just felt, well, okay, we're here. You're not alone. And that's what, no wonder the next day after summiting, I come down and I literally, as I'm falling asleep, boom, like a voice is almost like, this is so clear. And so, it was, I mean, I had spent many years looking for what would be the right purpose. until it just was so crystal clear that it only made sense. And of course it made sense as to like, yeah, of course I'm going to bring people. And I'm like, this is crazy. This doesn't, how am I going to convince? How is this going to happen? I mean, and at least the purpose was clear. Putting it into action was a little nutty, but it's like, okay, well, baby steps. And I'm a firm believer, like every single thing I do is like, just keep going. You know, sometimes there are going to be setbacks, you know, some people are going to laugh at it, but if it's clear in your heart, just be driven by it. And I have, I mean, and I wanted to connect this to even what we were just talking. When Lori died, the hardest part for me was I never had the chance to tell her how much I loved her. And you know, and I remember especially the night when I made the connection, like, oh my God, I was on the bridge. It was almost like, whoa, this is even too crazy. And as I was grieving, I will never forget one of her friends telling me, Sylvia, all the answers are in your heart. And that was something very special. So I think that I have, you know, it's a way that I've led my life. It's almost like when we have doubts, your heart never is going to, it's not going to lead you to the wrong side. And we got to get confused because ego sometimes can get around there. But I think, I you know, that night after Aconcagua, getting the purpose, like it felt great in my heart. It felt like this is it. This is what I need to do. And though it was wild and crazy, I'm like, yeah, why not? And then as you start thinking, it's like, it's pretty nuts, but you know, I mean, why not?
I love the image of the sky opening up above the but that phrase you said, the mountain rewarded you, and that's so powerful. And do you think that's so with Courageous Girls, what you're trying to do is help other women who've experienced abuse deal with that through trekking and through adventure? And is that what came to you? Was that when you knew what you wanted to do? Was it, I want to help other women, or was it, I want to help other women through helping them have the experiences in the natural world that I had?
I think what first came, to be, you know, totally upfront, was, okay, I need to see if this works. And I'm a Virgo, so there was no guarantee. And at the time, the development in terms of nature as a healing power was still very, very early stage, even up to now. And so for me, this was almost like, okay,
we talk about it a lot here. I mean, it's basically the only thing we talk about, to be honest. But no, you're right. It is an emerging thing, isn't it? It's not obvious. And certainly when you were having these experiences. Sorry, I interrupted.
Yeah. I think for me, it was almost like, yeah, it sounds amazing, but I don't know if it works. I mean, it worked for me. And so for me, this first part was, let's see how let's see what happens. Because I mean, unfortunately, nature, as beautiful as it is, it can be quite deadly. And so many things can happen. And I keep thinking I'm a cat with 18 lives. I mean, I've been in really small mountains in which people have died. I was part of a horrible accident in Guatemala. I mean, even the year after Everest, 4,000 meters, not even as tall as Mont Blanc. And we had this horrible storm that killed 7 people. And I was experiencing early stage of hypothermia, and I had no idea. And so, you know, nature, and it was almost like, it's just it was a harsh storm, but it is amazing. And so as how healing it can be, there's nothing guaranteed. And I think, I mean, what I was able to, after the journey with the girls, it's like, no, this thing works. And after bringing other people, understanding this actually does work.
So was the one in the book, was that the first time that you'd done it? Was that the first time you gathered a group of girls?
With the girls, yes, I have brought friends before for a fundraiser, and I mean, I was able to see that there's some transformation, but at times whenever we're older, you know, there's I think, no, we not only get wiser as we get older, I think we also get quite resilient. Especially women. I feel that, you know, our endurance really is something, I mean, not to put down my dear men, but women's resilience is unmatched. And so, I will never forget. I mean, I had this coworker of mine who's a cancer survivor who hadn't trekked a day in her freaking life, and then she joins us, and she's struggling, and she still makes it, but it's like, well, I beat cancer, I can do this, and so it was just very unique. But with young people, I didn't know, especially with a lot of trauma, what can happen, and that's what is so beautiful about the book. That chapter, everything we do. Oh God, I'm getting a little confused right now, but everything we do is never small. It is when we're in Periche. Nothing we do is small.
Yeah.
And it is possibly the most powerful chapter in the book.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And that idea of nothing we do is small is brilliant. And I think it was a wonderful example of, like, I got the sense that what you said, I think you felt that you had to carry the group. And then in the end, you all carried each other, didn't you? And that's a great example of what a fabulous thing just to come from the group themselves.
Yeah, they heal me. I have to tell, I feel it in my bones. I think the nuns and the girls heal me. I think that if I wouldn't have gone through that, maybe I might have had a hard time in Everest. Maybe I couldn't have made it. And so no, these young women, I mean, they taught me, and that's what it was my little kind of, it was fun to write it, because I will never forget, like, my corporate mentality, head of like, all right, strengths and weaknesses. I know better because I'm older. I'm wiser. I should know it. And boom. But no, and it is, I think it is part of, and especially, I mean, what we've all have gone through over the last 3 years, I think what the meaning of community, is we shouldn't look at it as having the main leader. I mean, we all have our stories, we all have our strength, we all contributing to the table. And so, yeah, I mean, I think for me, that is the journey of community. For me, that the journey with the girls, not only the journey of healing, but the journey of really understanding the power of community.
I wondered if, so when you were on the trek, obviously you had various blessings with the monks on the way, and I wondered the sense that you got of that collective healing and the burden that you were carrying and how that was going to help. How did that come through when you were having the blessings and sitting there in a meditative space with the girls with you? How did it feel?
I have to tell you, there is a video of it. So I had hired a camera guy to capture the journey. I wanted to film all my climb all the way to the top, because I felt, it would be really cool. And I remember whenever I would tell people about the reasons that I was climbing Everest, and I talked about it. I mean, it's always easy to talk about it and to put it into practice, tricky. I remember I had a very unique story whenever I would tell people my experience in the Himalayas for the first time, and how small I saw my place in the world and what the mountains meant to me. And I'd always moved people that way. And the reaction was something that made me feel like, ooh, I don't think many people maybe climb because of this, or can see that perspective. And so for the longest time, I knew there was something unique about my the way that I was doing climbing. And so when, here we are going to do this massive guinea pig experiment with these young women, I figured this could be interesting to capture, maybe and this is, I had no idea. I mean, I think I was thinking more potentially do a documentary instead of writing a book. I always felt there were enough books about Everest, and I didn't. I was very shy, and it's like, who wants to read a story about me? But I'm like, yeah, maybe a documentary, because it's just so beautiful, the whole scenery. And so it is, and actually I did the Gutsy show with Hillary and Chelsea Clinton, which is on Apple TV, but you can see some scenes. So we have this footage when I'm getting the first blessing of the nuns, and you see me break down, and completely unplanned. I mean, who wants to cry in camera? Well, I mean, I had no idea, but as we're sitting, it's powerful how, and I remember just maybe feeling the stress of, God, we're not healing. What's going on? Like, the girls, everybody seems tired, and, Jimena almost wanted to quit, and are we going to make it? And then the nuns are just all love. And there was something about their chanting. There was something about the combination of what they're doing that really breaks me. And so it's just powerful. And so I love that there's proof, because you can actually literally see me losing it. And I think that I started going like, and I guess it was a combination too of really feeling the love of the nuns. And there was something about where they lived, their humility. They could care less if I was gay, straight. I mean, they were just caring and really feeling just this unconditional acceptance was possibly the beginning of it. Because, as a Catholic person, unfortunately, I was conditioned, and because of my lifestyle, in the eyes of a Catholic Church, it was seen as sinful. But so for me, I was like, all right, fantastic. If that's the case, then I'm going to bypass the priest. I'm going to go straight to the Virgin, and I will keep still praying. But to know that I was being held by these kind nuns who literally could care less of who I was, and it still wanted the best for me. I think that was the beginnings of unconditional love. And I think they started, really opening my heart, and I'm a crying baby. So I'm a crying badass, as many people. I got no shame in crying. So, but I think that was the very beginning, and I think that only built up, and it was easy to surrender when we get to the circle with the girls, and everybody's, my idea of how to lead a group goes out the window. And just what the girls do, and just their impact and seeing their strength. That was something. I'm lucky to have witnessed that, and actually made it very easy, because we had footage of that. So translating it for the book was very easy. It's like copy paste.
But it's not. But it's not though, is it? It's humility, and it's creating space for that to emerge.
Yes.
And I think not everyone can do that. So I think that's right. You touched on something there that chimes with a question that Nikki's asked in the chat, and which is, you're saying you were thinking it was going to be a documentary. So what was the moment that you realized you wanted to write a book, and what was the purpose of the when did it change from being a documentary to a book?
I remember the year after Everest, when they discovered the brain tumor, I said, I would like to find a way to find in the story. When I finished Denali in 2018, and I came down and I went through a painful breakup, and I was drinking back again, but this time my drinking almost killed me. And I think I remember being like, whoa, okay, Sylvia, it's either one more drink or your life. And I decided, like, this is it. You've done something that is very, very unique, that has inspired many people at the time. Being the first openly gay women, had generated within my own community, just like, wow, this is amazing. I was getting some letters, and it just felt like, wow, I'm about to, wow, you're becoming the person that you had seen through your ex-wife. And so I remember I went back to Hoffman. I did a small weekend retreat with them. And after the words, a dear neurosurgeon friend recommended me to take this powerful healing self-compassion it's called compassion cultivation training. And now they have it online. This really powerful, immersive 8-week session that teaches you the power of self-compassion. That was what literally revolutionized my world. I had spent, and that's what is beautiful, because on the book, I'm able to reflect, there's almost like little sprinkles of the idea of compassion and self-compassion. And growing up in the circumstances that I grew up with, the parents that I had, I was very much pushed to have compassion for others, for being grateful, but not really allowing myself to understand what self-compassion meant. And so as I started dealing with my addiction and working through self-compassion, and 1 month went through, 2 months, 3, 4, 5, and then for me to really feeling, wow, I think I can walk this world. That's when I felt, okay, well, let's try to pitch the story. What am I going to do first? Try to get a literary agent, try to pitch a story. So I went through all that process, and as I was able to get that, and then start working the book proposal to then pitch it to publishers, it became very clear that I wanted to write a story that I wish I would have read that could deal with just the whole combination of finding purpose, of really being as open as to how survivors, we can be just, our worst enemies, and hopefully, bringing this book so vulnerable so that nobody has to hide again, and they don't need to feel that I'm alone, because when we do a lot of self-destructive things, it's easy to continue doing them because we just feel nobody else has done it, and then we're beyond the shame. So that was a little bit of my impetus, and putting myself to service. I mean, and I've been very blessed that I get to do that now.
You said something beautiful. You said being so vulnerable that no one else needs to hide, and I think that's magical. Thank you. So I think that vulnerability is so apparent within this, and yet it's in sort of opposition to so much of it, like you talked about your upbringing in Peru, very patriarchal society, Catholic society, and then you've gone into mountaineering, this macho place where vulnerability is it's not there, and you said loads of fascinating things. So there was one beautiful bit where you said, I could go on bulldozing my way through life and end up just where I wanted. But you realized that wasn't a way through, and that you needed to be soft and vulnerable, even though you knew that was dangerous and felt it more dangerous than most people. Do you think there is something in your life that's giving you that strength to be so open and so vulnerable? Or do you think it's something that you learned over time?
I think it's a combination of both. I mean, and that's why the Aconcagua episode is so important to me, because I think that is the very first time I literally learned how to surrender. I think, I mean, yeah, maybe, well, my youngest brother, my baby brother, who I adore, the minute that he found me completely passed out, on my own puke, I thought that was very humbling, and realizing I need help. But literally, I think to release, and I think the fear that many of us, especially with the word vulnerable, some people associate it with weakness. And what I have discovered is the opposite, is vulnerability, strength. I mean, it's almost, for me, it's almost an experiment, very Virgo-like, wow, I cry, I become Superwoman the next day. Interesting. I cry, I become Duke. So it's almost like, okay, what's going on here? And I think that got put into massive tests when I arrived to the base of Everest. I'm in the middle of a James Bond film. That was such a cool thing to actually write, because I'm such, of course, I hope you guys don't take it the wrong way, but I call myself James Bond, illegitimate South America daughter. It still is one of my dreams to see if I can do a little cameo, like, kind of have a little walking role in one of the films. That would be the coolest. But I show up, and here I am, the only woman with 7 guys who are just so taller, big mouth, and of course it's like, what have I done? Oh my God, and blah blah blah. And from the get-go, the smack talk and this and that. And so on the one side, I'm like, well, I've seen this in my upbringing, and I see this on the tech world. Okay, that's nothing new, but these guys are like, strong, and like, we're gonna make it, and bloom, bloom, bloom. And I was completely intimidated, and of course, crying and be like, oh God, what's gonna be my luck here? But then to see the strongest guy, boom, having to be evacuated even before we did our first rotation was so sobering. To see the second guy then being evacuated in Camp 2 was almost like, wow, okay. And that to me was the epitome about, okay, there's something with this, it's not about brute strength. And I think that was almost like, okay, well then let's continue being who you are, continue having those moments of vulnerability. And that's what it was even interesting right before the summit push, having the conversation with Masai, And the rage that I would never forget, that rage after talking to Lydia and Anthea and them telling their stories, and actually I going, I guess, remembering it, I'll never forget being like, I need to get in touch with Vogue. We need to make a massive profile. This is ridiculous. How women in mountaineering, and just being frustrated. And so then I couldn't take a nap. And next thing is like, we're leaving for the summit. But you know, it's like all those emotions. It's almost like, okay, well, I think the best way I can channel the frustration is by becoming an example and you know, just be upfront. You know, my strength is my vulnerability, and the connection to it has led me into the most amazing places. And I keep trying to preach that, and hopefully whoever hears me and try it and can see. But no, I'm a firm believer. I don't think I have yet to summit a mountain that I have not cried. I always cry before I summit a mountain. I think it's a beautiful release, but it is really, really powerful.
Absolutely. It's not uncommon for me to cry on these calls. It has to be said. I'm holding it together, but because it's important, and if things touch you and are important, then you need to allow yourself to feel it. Feeling is part of it. But I mean, it was like a narrative art gift to you, though, wasn't it? Those two guys having to drop out on the mountain. It sort of, it paints the other side of the picture wonderfully. That these constructs of strength and macho nature that don't get people anywhere, but there's been this prevailing myth, and there's been so few alternatives proposed. As actually, it can be different, and you don't have to get to the top like this, and you can get to the top in a different way. I think that's probably why the book has been so well received. Everyone is ready for a different story. We're all ready for a more engaging story. Not everyone wants to go out and conquer everything, do they? Even if they're into climbing, it's not about conquering, is it?
Oh, that word is, I mean.
Sorry, I've used it on purpose to provoke a response.
Well, I have to tell you this. It's so funny. As I've done so many interviews in which I hate conquering. The women who conquer. I'm like, oh God. I mean, it's like, okay, you know, at least I think that is what has been the perspective, and I feel it. It's something very funny that I hope. I hope the audience just takes with it. I mean, I keep calling myself messenger of the mountain. And last year I got asked to be an ambassador for virtual reality software called Supernatural. And they picked up Machu Picchu as one of the places they wanted me to do some research on. And as I was doing the research, I found out that the people that founded the Inca Empire, it was Manco Cápac and Mama Oyo. The mother of Manco Cápac apparently was this very famous warrior, female warrior, who people were afraid because they say that she talked to the mountains. And the Incas never saw the mountains as anything to conquer. I mean, they had the highest respect out of anything that existed, to the point that when you're in Machu Picchu, and I didn't know this, and many of you have gone or maybe have it on the bucket list, that if you stand in the center, the center, and you look at each mountain, like the mountains that are surrounding each of them are in perfect cardinal location. So it's like you have east, west. I mean, it's almost as if there was this harmony. And so to me, just as possibly swimming to the deepest, to possibly the most profound depths of the ocean. I mean, to me, the highest point in the world on our Earth, I mean, connecting to space, are mountains that they always have felt sacred. And even that connects to that very first emotion when I saw the Himalayas and I felt their protection. And so to me, it's almost like, why use the word conquering? Why? What's the meaning of it? I mean, conquering has never really done anything positive. And it's unfortunate. It's a word that's been used for thousands of years, and to change it, but it is like, it's more of the attitude that we can take. And so, and as I every time I love that as of lately, any different mountains that I go, and the groups that I go with, we have a very special, like we do our mini pujas, and we do a lot of gratitude. You know, I've been focused more in Peru, but it's always very sweet to be able to bring like coca leaves and burn it and ask for protection. But I mean, to me, I have seen, you know, some of the worst accidents on mountains. So that's what I'm like, oh, please, mountain, give us safe passage, and trying to be as I mean, treat it as a temple, and understanding that, yeah, it could be very risky, but no, there's something with the word conquering, and to me, I've gotten so much by treating them as temples, that's how I, you know, gonna keep preaching it that way in my end.
It's such a diminished narrative. I mean, that is genuinely, it's why we've not had a story about climbing Everest before, because none of them have been up to the sort of level of insight that we want to gain from the books that we read. And so thank you for bringing such, you know, you bring a basket load of diversity there. I mean, which has been really hard for you to bear, but is super important for everyone else, because it nourishes and enriches us all to hear people talk about mountains and talk of gratitude and love, as opposed to this is this lump of rock that we're going to demonstrate how amazing they are. There's a lovely question that Jackie's asked in the chat, and she says, when you were climbing it, during your most challenging times climbing Everest, did you find that your darker memories came up to be processed, or did you discover a deeper resilience that you didn't realize that you had?
Yes, and thank you, Jackie. I did discover, I have to tell you, I mean, still, every time I go on a dangerous climb, I still put a student hat on it. Even if I was to be a certified guide, I think I still look at it. And so what I have learned is that while being on expeditions, and especially with Everest, it allows me to be present, not get caught about the past just because what I'm doing is dangerous. And it's almost like, you know, and I've been in situations that if I think of something that is not the present, I tripped. It's amazing the amount of focus that you almost have to have, and you know what's always at stake is your life, or getting into an accident, and if you get into an accident, you can pull somebody with you, and so it's always amazing that when you're doing something dangerous, to me, I get scared. So fear comes along. So it's like and I think to deal with fear, you have to be present and look at it, and understanding, and it's almost, I mean, and that's what I love about the connection that you have. I mean, drinking is out of the question. So it's almost like every single ounce of you goes in alert. And you're dealing with fear, and fear is almost an experience that just keeps, I mean, but usually it comes up with, or a particular passage that can be very dangerous. But then once you go into safety, it's like, boom, okay, you can go back, take a deep breath, realize where you are, appreciate the beauty. So it's almost like fear and the struggle doesn't always stay there. And it is how we choose to deal with it. So for me, I think then after overcoming the fear, I was like, wow, I got the strength. It's almost like this connection. I mean, as I am doing something very difficult, definitely it's focused about like these, I hope I get out of it. I hope I get out of it. And then almost as after you complete it, you feel like, okay, I got into a different, it's almost like you discover the next level of the video game and you're like, whoa, I didn't know I can get here. And so that has been the beauty of it. And the more that you keep adding it to it, I think the more you keep expanding it. But yeah, I mean, I feel that it's hard. I mean, when you have a lot of, I mean, these expeditions that all you do is focus on climbing and there's no distractions with anything, you know, you can easily get a little sentimental, you can think of something, but when you are in the middle of difficult climbs, or especially in the middle, like for example, when we will be crossing the Khumbu at night and you're hearing the avalanches left and right, it's amazing when, you know, you wanted to get caught up about something in memories, it's like, boom, you know, something can happen. So I love, there's been something very special about when you get pushed into staying present, and the beauty of the reward is, wow, I did it. And that was what was so amazing on that last push closer to the South Summit and looking behind me and just looking that transition from night to day, just the unmatched view of the world, and realize that, oh my God, my two little chicken legs brought me here. And just to have that appreciation and literally being like, holy, wow, I had it in me. So yeah, and that's what I tell everybody. I mean, I went to the base of Everest when I was 30. So I wasn't even, that young in the sense of, I wasn't at my prime as an athlete, but no, I mean, I think we just get wiser and stronger with age.
But that thing about being present is amazing. It links to a question that John asked in the chat. He says, what would you say to women who aren't mountain climbers, as to how they can, as to the personal qualities they might draw on to deal with their struggles and their experiences with abuse? How does it translate?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, the experiences with abuse, it's heartbreaking. I think that when we have been forced to do something against our will, I mean, the questioning, and it's, I think we need to, what's number one is to understand the power of self-forgiveness, which is what I experienced when I started embracing self-compassion, giving myself self-compassion, giving myself that permission of self-forgiveness, being able to be my own, kind of holder. I mean, I always imagine and vision when when we give compassion, we're the ones coming hugging. While self-compassion, we're just hugging ourselves. I mean, what I was doing when I was hugging my oxygen tank. And that is hard. That can be so hard, and especially when shame has been inflicted, or in my case, addiction. But to have that capacity of literally really, really look ourselves in a mirror and tell ourselves, you're whole. It wasn't your fault. You are beautiful. I mean, to give that self-love, to even give yourself, if you need to forgive yourself, I forgive myself. I mean, to even verbalize those things, that's step number one. That is that release, and unfortunately, it's not as easy to practice. But even getting there, and that's what I'm hoping the second book I can really unleash this just really power of self-compassion in terms of just the strength that it does, the vulnerability. I mean, I was writing the book in the middle of the pandemic. I wasn't living with anybody. I was on my own. I was reliving all these stories, and I couldn't drink, and there wasn't nobody there to give me a hug. And so I had to eat my own medicine and apply my own self-compassion really hard. And literally, I will never, God, that's what I love about these meditations. I will be like, okay, there's one that is about, to your little inner child. And it's like, oh, just keep holding that. But no, I think that would be to these women, to John, to anybody who has been struggling, is we all have the capacity. Every day can be day one, and every day, there's a massive ongoing. We're pulling this luggage of years, but every day we have the capacity of having a clean slate.
And you've brought us wonderfully to where I wanted to go, which is there on the top of Everest. I can even feel it getting to me as I'm talking now, because you talked earlier on about unconditional love, and it seems that so much of this is about love, and whether you feel it or it's it when you want it. And it really touched me, the way you were there on top. It's getting to me now. The way you were there on top of Everest, and you left the picture of Laurie, a picture of Mamita, and you left a little picture of yourself. That I got that you needed to love yourself, and it felt like that was the point where you did. Sorry, you don't need to say anything. because you've said it all. You've said it all. Yeah.
And the beautiful discovery. I mean, I think that I do have, hopefully it's a little joke, but I don't pay attention to a lot of details. So that's gotten me in trouble when dating people, because I don't pay attention if they change their color hair. I just sometimes I'm more focused about the story and the experience, and that photo was so hard to see. But because that little girl in that photo had appeared on the ayahuasca, I mean, it was very emblematic, and I had never left a photo of me on a summit. It just felt like, well, it was weird. And that's what it was so weird, not weird, but if anything, like, what? When really dropping the photo and realizing that the snowman was there all along, and the destiny, and to let her free, and just it almost like, oh God, this is something. But no, I mean, that passage to the very end, we're letting her free. There don't no longer any whistles. It still gets me in Spanish. It was kind of cry-a-thon. But yeah, I think and at the end of the day, we all have our little inner child, and they're still with us, and we can always speak with them. And my little girl, right now, as things keep developing, as we move on the film and talking about turning this into a musical and blah, blah, it's almost like this little girl inside of me is like, I just wanted to walk among a mountain. What's going on here? And, but, it's such, she's up there, and it's been such a special journey.
Wonderful. So we've got the book coming out in Spanish. Film. Do you know when that's going to happen?
It's taking, I'm actually heading to LA in a couple of weeks, talking to Selena's team. The biggest challenge that we've had with the film is that the film is 100 pages. A script is 100 pages, and that's close to 2 hours. This book is 300 pages. Spanish is 400 pages. We had to cut the story of the girls in the film. And that's hard, because it almost like and even we tried to pre-up the script. So we are like going back to a drawing board and going like, okay. And originally we wanted to make it a limited time, kind of like, 4 episodes, 5. And so we're having these discussions to see, okay, what's the best route, where we make it the best justice. But, Selena is committed. She loves the story. So that's something for us to do, and being executive producer, I'm very excited that I can be part of it. So that's part of what's next, to keep focusing on that, talking about the musical. This release in Spanish, I have to go to the UK because I want to be able to connect to the amazing team at Stanford's and have a couple of book talks and possibly do maybe a nice little book circuit talk. So we're trying to figure it out. But no, I mean, I think to me is, the opportunity to keep sharing the book, to hopefully inspire people to get it, to tell others. It's a very special journey, because I know how difficult it is. But yeah, and I also give corporate talks, corporate keynotes, and working with the girls. So it's been a fun journey.
Well, it's amazing. I loved it. I knew as soon as I read it, I knew the community would love it, because it is so powerful. And time again, from our most powerful authors, we hear that they've written the book to read, and that's what you told us again. So honestly, thank you for helping show us a different way.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you,
so
everybody,
important
for your time. Thank you for sharing yourselves. Thank you so much. And this is a small world. Who knows? I will keep you posted when we expand the book tour. Maybe if one location is closed, please feel free to join.
Absolutely, and delighted to help you land here in the UK if we can. And more than happy to. It's been magical. So I'm going to take off pin so everyone can do the wavy goodbye thing, and you can go off and get your plane to San Francisco. Yes. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. It's been amazing. We're going to do it all again next month.